What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pitt podcast. And today it's all things basketball recruiting. We are going to talk Pitt men's basketball 2023 targets. Obviously, Pitt with already two commits in the can. I'll be joined by Pittsburgh Sports Now beat writer George Michalowski. We'll discuss the 2023 guys, get into a very little bit of the 24 guys, but we're going to focus mainly on 23 targets and where Pitt can go from here. It's all coming up today on this episode of the Locked On Pitt podcast.
Are Locked On Pitt, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Pitt podcast. Everybody, as always, thank you for making the Locked On Pitt podcast your first listen every day. If you are watching this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you are listening to this instead on a podcast platform, make sure to leave a review, do all that good stuff. George Michalowski in the house today. George, love having you on, man. Now go to Hoops guy, and I know we're ready to talk hoops, but it's great to have you on, man.
Yes, sir, Nick. Thanks for having me on again. Really appreciate it.
No problem. And the last time you were on, Carlton Carrington committed to Pitt, and now Pitt has a really nice duo with Carrington and Marlon Barnes. But since then, hasn't been a ton of movement, really, I guess you could say, in terms of what's actually going on with the recruiting. You know, Jaylen Curry was supposed to visit, didn't visit. He will visit in September. But you saw one key official visitor there at the end of the month, George, and that's, I think, the biggest topic here right now is Papa Kante, who has taken a lot of officials. Michigan was viewed as the front runner last time you came on. You said that. How do you think Pitt did on that official visit, and do you think Pitt's a legitimate player after that official visit?
Yeah, so Papa's definitely the biggest name, around Pitt fans' minds right now regarding basketball recruiting in the 2023 class. And, I talked to some people after his visit, couldn't quite reach Papa after his trip, but from what I heard, the visit went really well. He really liked it. He raved about it on social media, posted on his Instagram about it. But I did talk to his high school coach, Raphael Chilius, who coaches South Kent, used to coach alongside Gilbert Brown. He actually coached Gilbert Brown there back in the day. So there's a Pitt connection there. Coach Chilius knows everything about Pitt, knows everything about Gilbert Brown, and knows everything about Papa. So he's plugged in. And what he told me about Papa, I asked him, is Pitt in the mix here? Because like you said, we thought, and we had heard from other reports that Michigan was the leader, and, the other visits are important, but may have not been as important as that Michigan trip. But his coach did tell me, on Pitt, he said, he's all about relationships and fit, talking about Papa. Pitt is in the mix. They were the first school to ever offer him. That always will mean something. So there you have it, straight from his coach's mouth. Pitt is in the mix. So I think you can't really look away from Kante right now. If you're Pitt, if you're a Pitt fan, he's still the main focus. I don't know if Pitt got ahead of Michigan or the others, Maryland, Rutgers. There's a few other schools on him with that visit, but certainly sounds like it went well if his coach is still saying that weeks after his visit. But this is going to be an interesting one to watch just because, even yesterday he picked up offers from Illinois, Washington, and Ole Miss. So he's still picking up offers. That seems to tell you that he's not really limited to the schools that he's visited. He's obviously got an open recruitment still, hasn't cut his list down or anything. So all things to watch out for Papa Kante. But, according to that source, Coach Chilius, Pitt is in the mix.
This is a guy that has a ton of offers. You mentioned Illinois, but Kansas is on that offer sheet. Georgetown, Iowa, DePaul, Miami, Providence, Seton Hall, Rutgers, Syracuse, TCU, Tennessee. This is all his offer list, and it's an insane offer list that continues to grow by the day. So this recruitment might not be over. We might not have all the players in the field of vision here just yet for Papa Kante, but Pitt does need a big in the next class, and that is one thing I think that they really haven't focused on a ton outside of Papa Kante. We don't really have many names. Amani Hansberry was someone that was highlighted a lot earlier, has kind of fallen off the radar. Is there anyone else outside of Papa Kante in the bigs department? I know I just saw Tafara Gapare just decommitted from DePaul. I know Pitt put an offer out there, but he blew up. Is Pitt in that race, or is there another name that I didn't even mention?
Yeah, so Tafara, I know he released a top schools list before he committed, and then now is decommitted, but I don't really see him coming back into play for Pitt. There is a name, Laji Dembele from New York Renaissance, St. Benedict's. So he's a big man. He's, I believe, 6'8", 6'9". He's from New Jersey, so he's another name. Obviously, New York Renaissance is a program that's close to Pitt. They've got connections out in New York. Tim O'Toole's very, plugged in out there. So Ladji is definitely a name to watch. Haven't heard much about his recruitment, but 23 big men. He's really the one that stands out right now, other than Papa. And other than those two guys, it's getting kind of late. They still obviously have these last few circuit events over the summer to scout these high school guys, but as you see over the next few months, if we see more offers pop up to 23 big men or not, I think the focus will shift towards the transfer portal next season and retaining the bigs that they have right now for next season if they don't get any of these high school guys.
And let's go back to Papa Kante because we talked about his recruitment, maybe chances Pitt gets him. What about Papa Kante makes him such an attractive big man to so many schools? And what would Pitt potentially be getting in a guy like Papa Kante?
Right. So he's 6'10" and he's listed as a center on 24/7. But I do believe from watching his tape and hearing from scouts that have seen him play in person that Kante is really a stretch forward who can do it all. He's really long. He's got good length inside, shot blocker, really soft touch around the rim. But his recent tape from the Nike EYBL events this last weekend, I believe it was Kansas City. I may be wrong there, but I saw in his recent tape, he was really stretching the floor more than I knew he could do. I was aware that he had good touch. He had a good shot. But he was stepping out, shooting a little bit behind the arc. He was shooting the mid-range. He's got good footwork. It's all very rare for a big that's in high school, all of his tools that he has. So it's hard to find a 6'10" guy who's known by everyone in the industry as a 4-star forward, a top 115, top 120 overall guy. I think he's a top 15 big man on 24/7. So everyone who's seen him seems to rave about his footwork, his touch, his overall athleticism. But I've seen recently him stretch his game out a little bit further than the paint. So it makes me think that he's more of stretch forward type than a true center like John Hughley per se.
Yeah, and that would be very intriguing. I know that Jeff Capel likes that type of stretch stretch forward, so it makes sense that Pitt's kind of all in on Papa Kante right now. Pitt hoping to land him. Sounds like that they do have a chance here to get Papa Kante. Had him on campus, and that is a huge part of the battle in and of itself. But I want to switch over to the guards because this discussion is getting really interesting, I think, around the guards and what Pitt could potentially do here. But first, folks, I want to let you know about Rock Auto because with the increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. You don't have to spend more than 30, 50, or even 100% more from another chain store or car dealership when at rockauto.com it is so much cheaper. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 30 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you can need from a brake part to tail lamps, motor oil, new carpet, everything you could possibly ever want. Go to rockauto.com right now and you see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right locked on in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. I'll tell you what else is getting into ignition, George, and it is this guard class for Pitt because while they have Carrington aboard, and you could even maybe argue that Marlon Barnes can play a 2, they need a point guard because, listen, they could lose 5 of their 6 guards next year, and that's very realistic. 4 of them are for sure graduating, and then Ty-Laur Johnson could just be a one and done, which would only leave Cassius McNeely and then Nate Santos, I guess you could throw in there as well. But there's been a lot of targets recently popping up. The offers have gone out. Elmarko Jackson was a big offer. Obviously, he's blown up on the national scene. Elijah Gertrude was another one that was a big offer for them. But another guy that they've been in on, Ty-Laur Johnson, is a really interesting name to me, George. Talk about this board of guards right now that Pitt has. Feels like they're going to try and take at least one, maybe two more guards.
Right. So I think they've got their eyes on a lot of guards still, even though after Carrington commits and you have Barnes at the wing, but they still do have their eyes on a lot of guards, like you said. And these guys like Elmarko Jackson, Freddie DeLeon, who they offered recently, I don't see Pitt having much of a shot with those guys. I know they've talked to Freddie before last year and then, kind of eased up, and then now he's completely blown up. I saw he had 33 total offers. His next one he wants to hear from is Kentucky. So he's got, I believe, a couple visits already set up. I think he's got all 5 officials set up. So I'd cross Freddie DeLeon pretty much off the board. Elmarko Jackson, I would probably say the same. He's got plenty of other schools on him. He told 24/7 that Miami, Syracuse, Michigan, Nebraska, Notre Dame are all prioritizing him. Didn't mention Pitt in a list of about 8 or 9 schools. So although those 2 guys are recent offers given out by Pitt, I don't see them jumping in ahead of those, long lines of schools recruiting him. But some other guys that, Pitt could be really high on here, like you said, Ty-Laur Johnson. He's one of the best guards in the Northeast. I've talked to a scout from Prep Hoops, actually, who watched him out in New Jersey multiple times. And he's told me he's a primary ball handler out there at St. Benedict's. He's a true scorer, all 3 levels. He can really pull up. He has a good pull-up game, kind of similar to, I would say Dior Johnson in his ability to find his way to the rim. Not as smooth and as crafty, I would say, as Dior, but, Ty-Laur Johnson is a legitimate player, legitimate prospect in this class. He's, known around the Northeast as being an underrated guy. So tough New Jersey kid. Really good prospect, and I think Pitt really likes what they see there. So that'll be an interesting recruitment to watch. There's a couple other guys. You mentioned Jaylen Curry, who's really, performed well this summer. He's been a highly rated prospect for a while now. Pitt had him on for an unofficial last summer. And you broke the news, Nick. September is going to be big for Pitt. What is that? The Tennessee football game? He'll be here for a visit. So that'll be crucial for the Pitt staff. Jaylen Curry, very talented point guard. Then, like you said, Eli Gertrude, Jaden Young, still on the radar. I don't know as much about those 2 at the moment, but those are some names for you. Those are some names in the 23 class. They still are going after some guards, although Carrington committed. So, you got it right. They need a lead guard. They really need depth in that guard room because all these guys are going to be gone next year, and it's going to look a lot different. But if they can lay the groundwork here this season with a good season, who knows? The 2023 class could become a special one.
It could, and Ty-Laur Johnson, probably the main names out of those you named. Now, we've talked about Jaylen Curry, and he's obviously a big prospect on their board as well. We've talked about him ad nauseum, so I'm not going to touch too much on Jaylen Curry. The biggest news is that he is coming for a visit, and it will be in September, so they will get him on campus, which is the big thing. And so that's that. But what about Ty-Laur Johnson? Chances he comes to campus. I know when he was offered by Pitt finally a few months ago, he was waiting for that offer. It felt like that Pitt was a team he's really high on. But what about Pitt's chances with Ty-Laur Johnson? His recruiting sheet is blown up recently, but it still feels like that was a big offer for him.
Right. So I think it was a big offer for him. I think, like you said, he stated multiple times in a few interviews that he really wanted an offer from Pitt. He really was looking forward to that. He liked the relationship he'd established with Pitt. As for chances as a visit, I don't know exactly what's on his mind right now. I know he's got, like you said, a big offer sheet. He's one of the top prospects in the Northeast. He's got Seton Hall, St. John's on him. Those are going to be tough to beat out. Being from New York, being from New Jersey, always. I know VCU, Arizona State are also on him. So he's got a lot of, pretty good schools on him. I know he's said to, I believe, On 3 or maybe 24/7 that he does want to visit Pitt, St. John's, and VCU. I saw that in a report. So notable. I mean, he could very well end up on Pitt's campus for a visit coming up soon.
Would be big for Pitt as well to get him on campus. There could be things that hold them back in that regard. But I want to check up on another guard that is in the class right now, Carlton Carrington. George, you talked to him today, and we talked about this on the last podcast about how it is very likely Carlton Carrington could absolutely blow up in terms of what he has done. He's done a really good job. He's been named as top performer here, top performer here. The offers haven't rolled in yet, but it feels like they're coming. And how firm do you think that commitment is right now? We're about a month out of his commitment at this point.
Right. Yeah. And it's an interesting topic you bring up, Nick, because I've got some good news, a good story for some Pitt fans here. So I caught up with Carlton and his dad. Carlton, that's committed to Pitt, is actually Carlton Carrington III. His dad is Carlton Carrington Jr. So that was a fun, little conversation. Didn't know how to address them exactly. But so Carlton told me that, he told me he was pumped when he committed to Pitt. He was excited to get the weight off of his shoulders of this huge recruitment process. And the thing that was interesting to me is because he doesn't have social media. He doesn't go on social media. So I asked him and his dad about that. And his dad told me Carlton never had social media, never got involved in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything. And his recruitment never really blew up publicly because of that. But what he did tell me, his dad told me that Carlton had plenty of other schools offering him and had plenty of other schools interested in him over the last few years that were not made public. Carlton's dad is a big-time basketball figure in the Baltimore DMV area. He coached Baltimore Elite. He started the Team Mellow program. He was a big-time name in that area. He still is. So he knew which schools he wanted Carlton to consider. He knew which schools would want the best for Carlton, and he really helped him out there and kept his head on straight. This recruitment process gets crazy with a lot of these kids. If they're posting every offer, they're getting all this popularity, constant gratification on social media. But Carlton's dad really, set him straight from when he was a young but talented basketball player. So, then I asked him about Pitt and where Pitt came in the mix. And he said, George, I've known Jeff Capel since about 2006, 2007, 2008, around there. So Carlton's father sent a few players, to Jeff Capel. His Baltimore guys he sent to, Oklahoma, VCU, where Jeff Capel was previously coaching. So they had a really good relationship. Carlton's dad said he knew he could trust Jeff Capel coaching his son, taking his son on, into his program. So that relationship has been great with Jeff and with Carlton's dad. And then he said, last summer on June 15th, he told me Milan Brown was the first coach to call him right at 12:01. He was the first one to express interest. They got Carlton on for 2 visits over the past year. That relationship was very, very strong. And I think because of social media and because we're used to seeing other recruits posting everything on social media, visits, offers, interest, anything, I think you tend to think that a guy like Carrington can blow up and can still not have the greatest relationship with Pitt because he's not posting about Pitt everywhere every day. But from what it sounds like to me from the direct source this morning, it really sounds like he's firmly committed to Pitt. It sounds like he will 100% be a Panther, and they're both ecstatic to get Carlton to Pitt.
Sounds great. Seems like Pitt's going to have their 2 guys in the class. Marlon Barnes has reaffirmed that commitment a million times. It sounds good on the Carlton Carrington front as well. Pitt just sent out a new offer today, and we're going to discuss that. But first, folks, I want to let you know about Built Bar because Built Bar is bringing out a new flavor. It's Coconut Brownie Chunk Puff. From the people who invented healthy and tasty, it's another gift right into your hands because Coconut Brownie Chunk Puff is a deliciously chewy marshmallow flavored bar. Folks, you're going to love this fluffy cloud of a protein bar. That's right. It is a protein bar. It's high in protein, low in sugar, low in calories, and it's all delicious, covered in 100% real chocolate. You are going to love it. They taste amazing while giving you all the health benefits you could ever want. With delicious coconut rich and sweet brownie and creamy marshmallow, you don't have to fantasize about this flavor anymore. It is here. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 at built.com. Again, that's the promo code LOCK15 at built.com for 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Now, George, Pitt sent out a new offer today. These offers are still rolling in. Obviously, the July circuit is off and rolling. Cohen Carr was offered today by Pitt, and it's not like he was some under the radar guy at all in that regard. He really has a lot of offers. He's a 4-star everywhere, and he's one of the top recruits right now in the South. And Pitt is in on him, and it sounds like from the discussions that Mike Vukovic at Pittsburgh Sports Now had and Joe Tipton at On3 had, that Pitt could potentially get him on campus.
Right. Yeah. Cohen Carr, like he said, is one of the top wings, in this 2023 class. He's, I believe, top 60 on 24/7. He's a 4-star on Rivals. He's a big name, and he's especially blowing up as of late. This summer, he's really gone viral on a few clips for his crazy dunks, his crazy athleticism is kind of what has stood out to most people, most fans, and I guess scouts and coaches too. I mean, his athleticism is the number one thing you notice about him. He throws down windmills. He throws down some crazy dunks. You could go look those up. But yeah, like you said, Pitt, watched him twice over the past few weeks. They talked to him. They built that relationship up, and they extended an offer to him this morning. And he told Mike, and you could go look at the entire interview on Pittsburgh Sports Now, but he told Mike that he wants to visit Pitt, but he's not going to visit them right now. It didn't sound too urgent, which isn't concerning. It's a good thing for Pitt that he said he does want to visit them. The only flag I would say comes up there is he's already visited 2 schools. He's visited Indiana and Vanderbilt on officials. He has an official set up to Tennessee coming soon here, so he's kind of taking these officials to these schools now. And that's not to say he doesn't take one to Pitt, in the fall. But when he did tell Mike when he wanted to visit, he said, during his senior season. And it's not always that often that you see a guy extend his recruiting process all the way through his senior season of high school. So I'm not skeptical here as to whether Pitt has a good chance or not. I'd just say keep an eye on when he schedules that visit and really locks in that date to come out to Pitt, because it could, he could commit in the next few weeks if he likes one of these trips, and then gets to sit back on those for a few weeks and gets his season started, wants to wrap everything up. That's kind of how it goes most of the time, is guys want to, wrap up their recruitments before their senior season. So we'll see, but really talented kid, really big name in high school recruiting right now. And Pitt jumped in the mix this morning.
Yeah, and they certainly did. And we just went through about the whole cachet of Pitt offers for 2023. Again, there's leads there, but it doesn't sound like any commitments imminent anytime soon. It seems like they're going to ride with Carrington and Barnes for a little bit here. Jaylen Curry, the known scheduled visit right now for the rest of the cycle. We'll see about Johnson, maybe other guys that could potentially come up in that case. But I want to shift over. Just 2024, I know it's very early in that 2024 cycle. That contact period just opened up. But there is a lot of cool names that Pitt has offered, and it seems to have, interest in Pitt. Guys like Darren Harris, Delquan Warren. You look at names like that. Give me your overview of 2024 right now, where Pitt maybe stands on the very early part of this. Moses Hicks, I also forgot that.
Right, yeah, Moses Hicks recently visited. There's a few other big names. Pitt's extended – or I guess has shown interest in about 35 guys already in this 2024 class in just under a month. June 15th was the first time they could contact guys. And, by our count, it's around 35. So most of them are guards, some big names there. Jordan Vick, Delquan Warren, Malachi Palmer from, Pennsylvania, Brandon Cummings, Nelly Cummings' little brother, Boogie Fland, Ian Jackson. Those are some really highly ranked guys from New York City. Moses Hicks, he's a 6'3" guard wing type from New Jersey who visited recently. He told Pittsburgh Sports Now they loved his trip, really enjoyed it. Obviously an unofficial visit. So, no commitments coming soon is what I would say. But, obviously a name to watch on your radar. There's also some wings, like you said, Darren Harris. The interesting thing about Harris is he's really a big-time prospect already. I believe 6'5". He's a wing in this 2023 class, 6'6". Plays for Paul, I believe Paul the Sixth is his school in Virginia. And Darren has told me multiple times that, the schools reaching out to him the most are, Duke, Pitt, and others. He'll list them, but those two are always the first two that come up. It's Duke and Pitt. So if Duke continues that interest, I think everyone knows how that recruitment will play out. But it's interesting that Pitt is still going for him, still talking to him, still working on building that relationship. It's going to be important for them because he's a highly ranked guy. So Darren Harris is a name to watch. Royce Parham from North Hills, local kid from the WPIAL conference. So Royce is a big name. Watched him play in the Pete this season in WPIALs. He's a good shot blocker, great defender, working on his offensive game, and he'll definitely be a fun prospect to watch over the next few years. Tyler McKinley they offered out of Ohio. He's a 6'8" forward from Walnut Hills, I believe the Cincinnati area. So there's some names for you. I mean, Christian Humphrey Rembert, he's another 6'9" forward, plays for Powerhouse La Lumiere in Indiana. So he told me he wanted to visit Pitt this summer. So we'll see if he ends up on campus. I'm sure they're going to have, numerous guys on unofficial visits, whether it's the next couple weeks, whether it's in the fall for a football game or next winter, when these kids are, really entering the prime time of their recruitment in high school. So there's a lot of names on that board. Go check it out, 2024 recruiting board on Pittsburgh Sports Now. But biggest names, I'd say, Delquan Warren right now, Jordan Vick, Malachi Palmer, Brandon Cummings, KJ Green just picked up an offer. So there's a lot of exciting prospects on there. Go ahead and check it out, and it'll be fun to cover them for the next year.
Certainly a lot very early on. The fact that Pitt got Moses Hips on campus already, that says a lot to me about how interested he is. It seems like the period opened up, Pitt contacted him, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to go there in the next week. That's pretty much what happened. So that feels good if you're there. And Hips, top 75 prospect right now. So that's pretty good as well. But you just listed off a few names. I think just one thing, last thing about 2024, there's a lot of decent local talent. If you count like Erie with Delquan Warren up there, Royce Parham, Nelly Cummings' brother Brandon is in that class as well. There's a lot of local Pittsburgh talent. Don't think we could say that a lot, but it's a good class for the Pittsburgh region.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's great to see, it's great to see Pitt going after these local kids. There's even some more in 2025. Malik Thomas, Alier Malik out of Amani Christian. So there's some more local talent coming up in the ranks. Malik actually just got an offer from Auburn yesterday, so he's a really big name in that 25 class. But like you said, Brandon Cummings, all these guys, Delquan Warren, if there's these highly rated guys from PA, from Western PA, Pitt's got to get them on campus at the least. Once you get them on campus, they probably already know everything about Pitt compared to, other recruits from all over. So those are going to be really important guys to follow over the next few years. A lot of them have already been to Pitt. I remember last year I saw Alier Malik, 2025 from Amani Christian, like I mentioned. I saw him at a Pitt game. I was walking in the press box, saw him walking down. I was asked him, was like, are you on an unofficial visit right now? Are you touring today or anything? He's like, no, I'm just here as a fan. So he was just there with a couple of his buddies, with a couple of his teammates, checking Pitt out. And that right there is why it's important for Pitt to get these local kids, and interested in that, because they know about the program. Their coaches are familiar, their families, their friends. So it'll be fun to watch.
Certainly will. Pitt has local opportunities here coming up in the 2024 and 2025 class. Certainly at that. George, thanks for coming on. Tell them where they can follow you, read your stuff, listen to you, do all that stuff, man.
Yes, sir. Check out Pittsburgh Sports Now for all my Pitt basketball coverage. We've got some really exciting news coming to you soon. Not quite yet, but really big fall, winter coming up for Pittsburgh Sports Now on the basketball side. Check out theportalreport.com. for all your transfer portal recruiting needs in both basketball and football. We've got a lot going on there, and keep tuning in to Locked On Pitt. Nick's killing it out here, and he's putting on for Pittsburgh. We'll continue giving you the best coverage we can, and until next time.
Appreciate that, man. Folks, as always, thank you for listening to the Locked On Pitt podcast. We'll be back here tomorrow. As I always end it, hail to Pitt.